Okay, sixth graders. Well, we are continuing on here today in chapter 7 with today's directions. Find the area of the triangle. Now, remember, in our previous video for 7.1, we referenced area as how much you need to cover. That we envisioned it with a room, covering it with carpet. How much carpet would be needed to cover that room? And so it's the same idea with the triangle. If we had a room that was shaped like a triangle, how much carpet would we need to cover this room? The formula to find the area of a triangle is area equals the length of the base times the height divided by 2. Some formulas will show you this, and I'll kind of just write this up here. Area equals 1/2 the length of the base times the height. But as you know from what you know with multiplying fractions, multiplying something by 1/2 is the same as dividing it by its reciprocal, which is 2/1. So I actually prefer to do this. Base times height divided by 2. I just think it's a little easier to think about, but that's just me. For you, if you prefer multiplying things by 1/2, you can do that as well. But as long as you do it right, you're going to get the same answer. Now, take base times height divided by 2. Now, I want to point something out here because it's just common sense, and I want you to make it as simple as possible. If one of the numbers, one of the dimensions, either the length of the base, which in this case is 13, or the height of the triangle, which in this case is 6, if one of those numbers is easily divisible by 2, my recommendation is that you do that first. So in this situation, 6 is easily divisible by 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3. So I'm doing my division by 2 early by cutting one of these numbers in half. So instead of 6, I'm going to take 13 times 3. So when I come over here and do 13 times 3, 3 times 3 is 9. 3 times 1 is 3. And I don't have to divide anything else by 2 anymore. Because if I actually did 13 times 6, I would end up with 78. 78 divided by 2 is 39. So my final answer is 39 square meters. I just divided one of the numbers that could easily be divided by 2 and then multiplied that. Now here for number 2, I can do the same thing. 14 is an even number. It's easily divided by 2. So instead of 14, I'm going to think 7. And I'm just going to think 7 times 9. Well, 7 times 9, that's mental math. That's 63. So the area of this triangle is 63 square centimeters. Moving right along. 7.5 yards. Sometimes you're going to get fractions or mixed numbers. 7.5 yards is our base. Our height is 6 yards. I can cut the height 6 yards in half to go with 3. So that leaves me with 7.5 times 3. Well, if I turn everything over into a fraction, 2 times 7 is 14 plus 1 is 15. So that's going to give me 15 over 2 times 3 over 1. Well, 15 times 3 is 45. 2 times 1 is 2. When I come over here and take 2 into 45, it's not hard math, it's just a little bit of scratch work. 2 can go into 4 twice. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 minus 4 is 0. Bring the 5 down. 2 can go into 5 twice. 2 times 2 is 4. 5 minus 4 is 1. So that tells me that 2 can go into 45 22 times. There's 1 left over, so that's my numerator. My denominator here is 2. I'm dividing by 2, so it's 22.5. And then it's going to be yards squared. And that's my final answer. All right, moving right along. Sometimes they don't give you a actual picture of a triangle. They're just going to tell you what the base and the height are. Well, here I have a base of 3 and 25 hundredths kilometers, a height of 5 and 9 tenths centimeters, and that is a mistake. You're not going to get different units like that. So we make that kilometers. That's my fault. That was not intentional. You're not going to have to be converting units or anything. But neither of these really work great dividing by 2. So sometimes you just will have to go and multiply the numbers as they are and then take that number and divide it by 2. So I'm going to take 3 and 25/100ths, and I'm going to multiply that by the 5 and 9/10. As we know, multiplying decimals, place values do not need to be lined up. 9 times 5 is 45. Put the 5 down, carry the 4. 9 times 2 is 18. Plus 4 is 22. Put the 2 down, carry the 2. 9 times 3 is 27. Plus the 2 is 29. Put the 0 down so everything lines up with my 5. 5 times 5 is 25. Put the 5 down, carry the 2. 5 times 2 is 10. Plus the 2 is 12. Put the 2 down, carry the 1. 5 times 3 is 15. Plus 1 is 16. Need to add these two numbers. 5 plus 0 is 5. 2 plus 5 is 7. 9 plus 2 is 11. Put the 1 down, carry the 1. 1 plus 2 is 3. Plus 6 is 9. Nothing in 1. Nothing in 1 is 1. There are 1, 2, 3 numbers that come after the decimal in the problem. So I need 1, 2, 3 numbers that come after the decimal in my answer. 19 and 175 thousandths. But now I have to divide that by 2. So I'm coming over here, 2 into 19 and 175 thousandths. It's going to get a little small, but I'll do what I can. 2 cannot go into 1, but it can go into 19 9 times. 9 times 2 is 18. 19 minus 18 is 1. Bring the 1 down. 2 can go into 11 5 times. 5 times 2 is 10. 11 minus 10 is 1. Bring the 7 down. 2 can go into 17 8 times. 8 times 2 is 16. 7 minus 16, I'm going to come up here. 17 minus 16 is 1. If I were then to bring down the 5, put that over there. 2 can go into 15 7 times. 7 times 2 is 14. 15 minus 14 is 1. I cannot end up with a remainder when I'm doing decimals. So as I know, I would add a 0 there. Then I would bring it down and put it there. 2 can go into 10 5 times. I end up with 9 and 5,875 10 thousandths square kilometers. And sometimes you're going to get some weird numbers like that, but the math itself is not hard. All you're doing is multiplying those two numbers. You get your answer of 19 and 175 thousandths, and then you divide that by 2. And as you can see, that division, I just kind of ran out of room, but the division itself is not hard. All right, now, same formula, area equals base times height divided by 2, to apply to something just a little bit different here. Find the missing dimension. So this is something a little bit different in the sense that you're going to be given the area of the triangle already, and you're either going to know the height and have to figure out the base, or in this one you know the base and you're going to have to figure out the height. So we want to remember the formula of area equals the base times the height divided by 2. B stands for base, H stands for height, A stands for area, over 2 divided by 2. So when I look at this problem, once again I'm thinking, okay, what can I do to figure this out? Now there's a couple different things that I can do. All right, I know that there's a couple different ways that you can think about setting it up. So I'm going to show you here some different ways. Now I know that it's base times height divided by 2. So one way to think about it is say, well, if I do 8 times b, okay, and 8 times b, now this is not the best example because I can divide this by 2, but I'm going to go ahead and show you what you could do. If this was an odd number that you really couldn't divide by 2, what I would recommend is you say, well, 8b, and then, because this times this, without cutting it in half, is going to be twice what this is. Because when you cut it in half, you get this. Now, if I double 42, I actually get 84. So you could think of it as 8 times b equals 84. And that's really true, because I haven't cut anything in half yet. Now, if I cut 8 in half, which is really the best route to take, but sometimes you get an odd number here, and that doesn't work as well. I would cut 8 in half. 8 divided by 2 is 4. And then I would just keep the 42 the same, and I would have 4b equals 42. And you can see that that b is going to be the same regardless, because this is half. This is twice as much, the 4 is half as much, and this 42 is half as much as 84. So the fact that these are proportional, that means b is going to be the same. But now I actually need to solve for b. It's always better to use smaller numbers. That's why my recommendation is that if this can be cut in half, go ahead and do that. So I'm cutting that in half. That's my dividing by 2, so I get 4. 4 times b is going to equal 42. And then it's just, as you know from your equations, that's why we do equations back in chapter 6, it's just 42 divided by 4. So I'm going to come over here, 4 going into 42. Well, 4 goes into 4 once. 1 times 4 is 4. 4 minus 4 is 0. I bring down the 2. 4 can go into 2 0 times, because if I bring down, I have to start over, which means something goes up there. 0 times 4 is 0. 2 minus 0 is 2. I cannot end up with a remainder, so I've got to add a decimal 0. And I'm going to bring my decimal straight up. Then I'm going to take this 4, and I'm going to bring it down. 4 can go into 20 5 times, and I know there are none left over because 4 times 5 is 20. I find that b equals 10 and 5/10 feet. And this is not squared, because this is not an area. This is just a length of a base. How long is the base? It's 10.5 feet, 10 and 5/10. All right. Sometimes you're not actually given a picture of the triangle. You're just given the dimensions. Area equals 175 square feet. Height is what we're trying to find out. The length of the base is 20 feet. Well, we want to think about the same thing. This is divisible by 2, so I want to go ahead and do that first. 20 divided by 2 is 10. So I know that 10 times the height equals my area of 175 feet. And once again, if my number that I know is not divisible by 2, I can just keep that number the same, but then double that, okay, and work with a little bigger numbers. But 10 times my height equals 175. I don't really need to label that. And as we learned back in chapter 6 with equations, this is going to be 175 divided by 10. Well, remember, 175 divided by 10. Remember, when we divide by 10, all we're doing is moving the decimal one place to the left. It's important that we remember these things that we've learned, because when I'm dividing by base 10 numbers, all I'm doing is moving the decimal to the left. And there's 1 0 here, so I'm going to move the decimal one place to the left there. And I'm going to find that h equals 17 and 5/10 feet. And if you set this up long ways, 10 going into 175, I'm not going to do that all here in this decimal right now, in this video right now, but you would find if you did that correctly, you got this same answer. You would get 17 and 5/10, or 17 and a half feet. All right, so that's area of triangles. We'll talk to you later, 6th graders. Bye.